2. Reaching the wreckage of the other plane will be even more difficult.
These are mountaineers from Denver's Rocky Mountain Rescue Club. Near the rim of the Grand Canyon Gorge, they collect their gear. These mountaineers will attempt to scale the steep walls from the floor of the canyon in order to reach an abutment on which rests the shattered wreckage of the United Airlines DC-7.
It's not long before rescuers come to a grim conclusion. Everyone aboard both planes is dead. It is now up to investigators from the Civil Aeronautics Board to piece together what happened.
The Grand Canyon is a graveyard for 128 passengers and crew of 2 airliners which crashed on peaks little more than a mile apart. The impact reduced the wreckage to carbonized smears of paint and metal. None survived.
The sudden loss of 2 of America's most modern airplanes shocks a country that has come to think of air travel as luxurious and safe.
We were not familiar as a people with having massive tragedies like this and a huge body count, especially in this fledgling thing called commercial aviation. We were used to an airplane crashing every now and then. It was a fairly common occurrence, but not 2 very safe airliners.
Air accident investigators are shuttled to the crash site by helicopter.
The investigator, of course, is driven by a desire to know what caused the accident for the simple reason that we want to prevent it from ever happening again.
The team's lead investigator is well suited for the job. Jack Parshall is an aviation legend, not only an experienced pilot, but a crash survivor himself.
This was one of the pioneers. This is a guy who's flown airmail. He's done it all over the years, and he's also had 4 crashes of his own. You would want somebody exactly like this on the job of trying to piece together the dynamics of a crash as well as piece together the metal.
All right, let's figure out what's what. Start mapping this out.
The pieces on the ground will tell Parshall what happened in the air.
Folks, we've got a little weather, so it should get a bit bumpy. How are we doing on your side, Bob?
Thunderhead 5 miles south.
Could a sudden thunderstorm have produced turbulence violent enough to knock both planes out of the sky?
Damn!
Jack Parshall doesn't have any of the advanced technology or the considerable body of knowledge that modern-day investigators have come to rely on.
It was night and day between the tools that the National Transportation Safety Board has now and what they had then. It literally was a different world. They had very little.
Broken fragments of the plane and his own expertise are all he has to solve this mystery.
This is what's left of the cockpit.
There were no black boxes like there are today. It really was a by the seat of your pants situation, and in fact, this was the age in which accident investigation began to grow up.
Hot enough to melt aluminum.
At the TWA crash site, Parshall finds evidence of an intense post-crash fire, but that doesn't tell him what brought the plane down.
Where's the Connie's tail from here? Okay, let's take a look.
Investigators locate the constellation's distinctive triple tail about 500 meters from the rest of the plane.
Well, well, well.
The distance tells Parshall that the tail came off the plane before it hit the ground. If he can figure out why the tail came off in mid-air, he'll be one step closer to finding the cause of the crash.
Check this out.
The wreckage of TWA Flight 2 shows clear evidence of a catastrophic impact. The plane's skin has been shredded. Parshall also finds small streaks of blue paint.
I'm gonna need this brought up to the hangar.
On the canyon floor 700 meters from the constellation lies a piece of the other plane. The DC-7's wingtip is streaked with red paint and is nowhere near the rest of the plane. It also came off in mid-air.
It was a smoking gun. When you find red on an airplane that has no red, that pretty well proves the point that something happened up there that was not part of that airplane as it took off from Los Angeles. This was one of the things that cinched the deal.
The evidence points to an incredibly rare, almost unheard of event.
They definitely still have some paint up there.
It wasn't severe weather that brought down two planes from two of America's largest airlines.
Damn! What's he doing there?
It was a mid-air collision.
For a DC-7 crew to look up and see a white constellation right in their face, first of all, there's going to be a nanosecond or two of absolute, complete disbelief.
Oh, God! Bank, 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 bank! Come on, baby, come on!
Muscle memory kicks in for any experienced pilot, and that's when the yoke gets grabbed and thrown in whatever direction, raising the wing, trying to get out of the way. But the dynamics at that point in time are too late.
The collision over the Grand Canyon is one of the most significant accidents in the history of commercial aviation.
It was an earth-shaking event that took place there that day.
What Jack Parshall uncovers through his investigation could affect commercial aviation across the country. Already certain there's been a mid-air collision, he now needs to figure out exactly how the two planes collided and why.
Can we get that piece over there, please? Thanks, guys.
Parshall has to recreate the final moments of the two flights based on bent metal and streaks of paint.
It was one heck of a challenge to match those two aircraft up and come to a deduced conclusion as to what happened. They start to look at models in a mid-air collision to put things together and figure out could this wing have interfered with this horizontal stabilizer, etc.
Now, let's see what we got in the DC-7.
To try and build a scenario that matches some of the minute clues that they may have, like impact marks, like paint transfer marks.
Take a picture, please.
The paint transfer evidence tells Parshall that the DC-7's left wing hit the constellation from behind.
It was obvious that the DC-7 had probably overrun the constellation from the right rear side. Had come apart, literally, knocked the tail off.
The constellation plummets towards the Grand Canyon more than 17,000 feet below. United 718 has lost half of its left wing, but not all of its engines.
What's the damage?
Number one engine is out.
Airspeed 260. On level out.
8,000 now.
Anyone that survives a mid-air collision is luck. Because it depends on what the damage to their airplane. You have to have enough left to control the airplane.
Less than a minute after the collision, TWA Flight 2 slams into the canyon floor. In the DC-7, Bob Shirley and his crew struggle to avoid the same fate.
Come on, pull up! Pull up!
This airplane is going to be rolling rapidly to the left, and it has no control.
Parshall now understands the mechanics of how the two planes collided. But he still doesn't know why their flight paths crossed. They were supposed to be flying different routes at different altitudes. They should not have been in the same place at the same time.
Damn! What's he doing there?
Parshall now needs to know how that happened.
Today, the only three bodies found from the United Airlines plane were brought up by helicopter. Here, Army, CAB, and airline officials talk over future operations as this somber announcement is made, that next Monday, a single reverent burial service in 3 faiths is planned at Flagstaff, Arizona, for the unidentified victims of the two planes.
This crash in the Grand killed everybody and galvanized the country. I would just imagine that Parshall was very cognizant of the fact that this was probably the most critical investigation he had ever been involved with, and that the consequences for getting it wrong in any respect could have tremendous negative ramifications for this fledgling industry.
Investigators continue climbing through the wreckage of two passenger planes that collided over the Grand Canyon.
Jack Parshall reviews the plane's flight plans.
So they both start the day at LAX.
United Flight 718 taxi to position in a cold...
Let's see. 718 was cleared Green Airway 5 out of LA, direct to Palm Springs Junction, to Needles, then on to Painted Desert Line, here, at 21,000 feet. TWA was cleared Amber Airway 5, Green Airway 2, direct to Daggett, and then crossing Painted Desert Line at 19,000 feet.
Either one of them should have been over the canyon.
It's clear both planes diverted from their original flight plan. But Parshall knows that's not uncommon.
What you would find pilots doing is they would file a flight plan along the airways, and once you get airborne and you're more or less out of the heavy congested area of an airport, then you refile your what you really want to do, which is direct here, direct there, direct someplace else.
With no cockpit voice recorder to help them, investigators turn to radio dispatch recordings and transcripts. The radio calls between the pilots and their company dispatchers may hold clues about the routes the two planes actually took that day.
United 718, we're at Palm Springs Junction. United 718, we're at Needles, 958, 21,000 feet, clear skies.
That's the last one they reported.
Course direct to Durango.
Estimated crossing the Painted Desert Line at
10:31.
10:31.
They had 33 minutes to get there, so how come they never made it?
To answer that question, Parshall needs to learn more about the movements of the other plane, now lying at the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Let's see what TWA did.
TWA-2 cleared for takeoff on runway 25 right.
Roger, copy.
cleared for takeoff, 25 right.
TWA Flight 2 took off 3 minutes ahead of the United flight in a different direction. It was to fly northeast, towards its first checkpoint, Daggett.
TWA-2 en route Kansas City, passing Daggett at 19,000.
Roger, TWA-2, 19,000 at Daggett.
The TWA pilot was Jack Gandy. With 15,000 hours as captain, he was nearly as experienced as United's Bob Shirley. Gandy knew these skies well. He'd flown this route nearly 200 times.
Good morning, TWA dispatch, TWA-2. We've got a little bit of weather here we want to get on top of. Be a good man and ask Salt Lake to clear us to 21,000.
Roger, TWA-2, requesting clearance at 21,000 feet.
So, TWA asked for 21,000. So Salt Lake clears them?
No. Request denied due to conflicting traffic.
Advisory, TWA-2, unable to approve 21,000 due to traffic.
That's a no-go on 21,000.
United 718 is there.
Captain Gandy wants to avoid the clouds in his path. And in 1956, he has another way to accomplish that.
Let's just get on top of this stuff.
He uses visual flight rules, or VFR.
Roger that. Advise Salt Lake I'm going to VFR and 1,000 on top.
Salt Lake, TWA-2, requesting 1,000 on top.
Maintain at least 1,000 on top. Advise TWA-2 his traffic is United 718, direct Durango.
The TWA crew was cleared to fly 1,000 feet above the clouds, but warned to look out for United 718.
Well, they used to have a procedure to operate 1,000 feet on top.